The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Wednesday, January 29th. I will be heading to the airport immediately after the show to catch a plane to Atlanta, Georgia, and then drive to Clemson. I'll be giving a talk at Clemson University tomorrow on Israel's moral war to the students in the Lyceum program at Clemson, which is the program run by Brad Thompson. And then I'll be going off to Florida to the Objectivist Conference in Florida, where I'll be giving a talk about the future of objectivism. And that's the plan. I'll be back home next Wednesday, so a week from now, after visiting also the Dali Museum and visiting other places in Florida. Yes, I'll be back Wednesday. Shows between now and then, spotty. We'll see. I don't know. I'll try to do as many as I can, but we will see. Anyway, that is the plan. Today we'll do a relatively short show because I have to go to the airport, so we won't run longer than 2 hours, maybe just an hour and a half. We'll see. The Super Chat fundraising goal is set appropriately. Let's just jump in. As I said, Trump is just sucking all the air out of news. There's basically nothing going on in the world except what Trump is doing. That's what it seems like, because he's doing so many big things, controversial things, off-the-cuff things that is dominating all the news. So we will talk about a bunch of that. But let's start with what's going on live right now. RFK is in front of a Senate committee discussing his qualifications for being Health and Human Service Secretary, and it is I don't know. It's just a ridiculous I don't know expression of political God. I mean. It's just, this guy who is a conspiracy theorist, who is an anti-vaxxer, who is an anti-farmer, who, probably lies about a lot of things that he believes in or doesn't believe in for his own financial gain. It's a clown show. I like that, Emmett Morris. It's a clown show. Now, it's a clown show. It's pathetic. It's ridiculous. It's infuriating that RFK is even nominated to a position like this. He's not qualified. He's the opposite of qualified. He could be incredibly destructive in a position like this, and it sends basically the wrong message to Americans. It sends the wrong message to healthcare providers. It sends the wrong message to pharma and people at the front lines, kind of trying to solve the healthcare issues of Americans. The one virtue he has, where he talks about eating better and exercising and doing stuff like that, you could get somebody sane saying the same stuff. You don't have to have somebody who is a complete nutcase to advocate for eating well and exercising. It's part of the clown show here is Republicans who, I remember not that long ago, were really upset at Mayor Bloomberg for threatening or actually executing, I think, on a tax, like a special tax on, big soda, on big tubs of soda, because it was unhealthy. Now they want to nominate somebody who'd like to tax most of our food because it's unhealthy. That wants the federal government to basically regulate our food from the top down in terms of its health. So now we have Republicans wanting to micromanage our diet. It used to be Democrats who wanted to do that. The whole layout of this hearing is interesting because Republicans don't like RFK because of his stance on abortion. But they love his anti-pharma, anti-science, anti-vax, stupidity over COVID, and a bunch of other things. Anything conspiratorial, all this, whatever conspiratorial things, they love that. They'll jump on that. And the Democrats are now suddenly, they're the pro-science, pro-vaccines, pro-whatever, and anti-conspiracy theories, and they're attacking, RFK because he's part of a administration that's going to be anti-abortion. And it's just the whole line of questioning is absurd and ridiculous. I mean, this is theater. It's comedy. So Tom Tillis, a Republican from North Carolina, literally asks RFK if he's a conspiracy theorist. Talk about a softball question, that can only be hit for a home run. I mean, really? RFK, of course, says, me? A conspiracy theorist? That is not true. It's just a way to malign me because I ask questions. I've just asked difficult questions. That's all I'm doing. I don't have a position. I just literally ask difficult questions. And they label me a conspiracy theorist because they want to silence me because they don't like that I ask difficult questions. This is in a hearing that's supposed to tell us whether RFK is qualified to be. We're learning nothing in the hearing except that RFK is very good at lying. He keeps saying, I'm not anti-vax. I support vax. My kids are vaccinated. I love vaccines. I think vaccines are great. What about all your statements in the past that are clearly, unequivocally you're anti-vax? Only Democrats are asking these kind of line of questions. And he goes, taken out of context. They didn't understand the point I was trying to make. They don't get it. In other words, RFK is lying through his teeth. He's asked about his position on pharma, his anti-pharma position. He's generally he's against all these drugs that are now being used for weight loss, which are showing unbelievable promise in terms of all kinds of other diseases. He's against a lot of what pharma does, and I'm not against pharma. Me, RFK against pharma. That is, equivalent of defamation. I just ask difficult questions. I just want to know the science. I mean, this guy is, he's a horrible human being by every account of his personal life. He is a anti-science. He came out during the hearing as pro-measles vaccine. When he went to Samoa to try to convince them not to use the measles vaccine, a number of kids died as a consequence of kind of an anti-vax movement over there. I mean, he just sits there and lies. And senators, we are supposed to learn something new about him, about his stance, about what he represents. I mean, the whole proceedings of confirmation have become public. The public proceedings are just a joke, right? They're just a joke. I mean, Republicans should admit that they will basically vote yes for anybody that Trump nominates. And Democrats should admit that for the most part, they'll vote no, although that's not always the case. Some Democrats have voted for some of Trump's nominees. And stop playing this game. Trump wants him, we'll appoint him. That's all that matters to these Republicans. And this process, so-called process, is just an expression of, a farce, dishonest, and a way to just bamboozle the American people. Joshua, you don't know what you're talking about. You really shouldn't talk about things you don't know anything about. It's pretty sad to watch people on my chat spout complete and utter nonsense. He says, the reality is we have more vaccinations, but somehow we get more people who suffer from disease. No, we don't, actually. The vaccinations are targeting particular diseases, and those diseases where we have vaccinations, the disease rate has gone close to zero. People who get vaccinated don't get those diseases. There's no measles really in America today. There's certainly no polio. If you go IVF, what do you call that? Cervical cancer is caused by a virus. We have a vaccine against that. The number of cervical cancer cases have plummeted, have just unbelievably plummeted. Research project after research project after research project trying to find a connection between vaccines and autism finds no connection between vaccines and autism. On every one of the points that he makes, on every single one of the points that he makes, there's no correlation with vaccines. Down syndrome's up because of vaccines. I don't know why Down syndrome's up. I don't even know if that's true. But, But has anybody shown that as related to vaccines? No. Nobody has shown that. Indeed, the studies that have been done show that they're unrelated, that there's no correlation between Down syndrome. So, correlation is not causation. So a lot of things have happened over the last 20 years and things have increased. You can't, because they've all gone up, doesn't mean they're related to one another. They cause one another. So if it's true at all, there is no studies out there that show a causal relationship between the two. Since the Yaron Brook show started in January 2015, the number of people with Down syndrome and autism has gone up significantly. I mean, I think it's quite clear that the Yaron Brook show is causing that. I mean, God, help us. All right. Another issue that came up while RFK was speaking was, there's been a lot of controversy. It's gone to the courts about mifepristone, or whatever, something like that. It's basically the abortion pill. The abortion pill, which the FDA has been approved since 2000 for use up to 10 weeks of gestation. It has been studied thoroughly because it's been used for a long time. And it has been shown that this is one of the safest pills anybody can take, the safest Tylenol. And yet Republicans, in order to try to ban abortion pills, have argued it's not safe, it's wrong, and they've taken it to courts, and they've lost in court, but it's still in the courts in Texas. And there's a real effort among Republicans to ban this abortion pill. And even though it's completely safe and everything, RFK has said that President Trump has asked him to look into it, to assess objectively, completely scientifically, because that's RFK. He's completely objective and completely scientific, the safety of this drug, even though it's been assessed, it's been reassessed, it's been studied, it's been used by tens, hundreds of thousands of women. And RFK said, well, of course, Donald Trump has asked me, he's the president, I will do it. Tylenol is pretty safe. Come on. Safe as Tylenol is not as strong an argument as it used to be. If you take Tylenol once, almost nothing is going to happen to you. You don't take mifepristone more than once. It's as safe as Tylenol is really, really, really strong argument. Tylenol, if you take huge quantities of it, will do all kinds of bad stuff to you. That's true of anything. I'm sure it's also true of mifepristone. So, no, it's as safe as Tylenol, and that's a real thumbs up for it. Meribins, who is a biologist, a scientist, who actually usually knows what she's talking about, except for some of her, super chats. Some of them I have no idea what she's talking about, but here she says, people are having kids at old ages when chromosomal aberrations are more common. Nothing to do with vaccines or pathogens or anything like that. That's absolutely right. Thank you, Mary Benz. You're going to see, as women have babies at older and older ages, you're going to see more challenges. As people generally have, you've got a lot more genetic problems with couples that have babies at later ages. So that is probably, most likely, the cause of this. So thank you, Mary Benz, for bringing some sanity into, Joshua Nice says he can halfway agree with us on this because the other half, it's like the half where he's using his mind, he agrees with us. The half that's dedicated to reason, he agrees. The half that is still ingrained with, I don't know, mystical tribalism, he can't bring that around. So anyway, we're going to have a Health and Human Services lead who is probably the most anti-science that we have ever had. Anti-science in the science that we're talking about, in the science that is health that we're talking about. And the fact that he has a few positive good things to say does not justify the nonsense and craziness of so much else that he's doing. All right. Let's talk about deferred resignations. I mean, this is really fun. I'm telling you, Trump is the funnest president we've had so far. And I know some of you find that I'm belittling the danger he represents, but believe me, I'm not. It's still fun to watch, partially because I despise them all. I despise the left. I despise the right. I despise the bureaucrats that are kind of panicking right now. So watching it all, everybody smoke come out of their ears, is just a lot of fun to watch. And the smoke's coming out of Donald Trump's ears, and he's having to backtrack on everything. And I mean, it's all just good to see. Anyway, Donald Trump has basically made an offer to all government employees, I guess by email, where they, if they let the government know by next week, by next Friday, that they want to resign, they can resign, in a sense, effective September 30th, but they don't have to work between now and September 30th. They can leave their job. They will be paid until September 30th. This is very much in line with what Elon Musk did at Twitter when he came into Twitter and offered everybody severance, if they voluntarily left. Particularly Twitter, this is important because almost impossible to fire people in California, so you want to incentivize them to leave by themselves so you don't have to fire them. Same thing to some extent, the federal government, very difficult to fire people who work in the federal government because of all kinds of laws and regulations. So the best way to get a mass firing is to actually have them resign. So here's what it's about. Federal workers who accept the deferred resignation offer will remain employed, retain all pay and benefits, and be exempt from in-person work requirements until their final resignation day of September 30th. So they might still be working, but they won't have to come in person because one of the executive orders that Trump signed was everybody has to start coming into the job and be in person. Those who take the offer could see their duties changed or be reassigned or placed on leave before their resignation. But other than that, they would be expected to work. They could continue working from home to the extent that they do that, but they would be out of end of September. Those who accept the deal are not expected to work, according to one of the publications. Again, there's a lot of contradictory stuff that's coming out that the Trump administration is putting out. There's not one consistent message. And the most common question by employees is, will I have to work? Can I take the vacation I always wanted, for 8 months? Can I just watch movies, chill for 8 months? It's unclear, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the particular agency whether your job is going to be moved, eliminated, consolidated, reassigned, exactly what's going to happen to what you're going to do over the next 8 months. Under the offer, employees can accelerate their resignation date, but not extend it. If a federal worker becomes eligible for early or normal retirement at any point before their resignation day, they can also elect to retire according to the office. Those who don't accept it, the offer expires on February 6th. There's no penalty if they do not respond to the email. But the announcement does state that the majority of federal agencies are going to be downsized as part of the Trump administration's overhaul. They're going to furlough employees. They're going to reclassify employees. They're going to reclassify employees to at-will status, which will then make it easier for them to be fired. So they're going to change the way employees are treated in the government, which is all, at the end of the day, really good. This is all good. I don't think that this letting people resign is good, but we'll get to that in a minute. For those who do not take the offer, they write, "We cannot give you full assurance regarding the certainty of your position or agency, but should your position be eliminated, you will be treated with dignity and will be afforded the protections in place for such positions." So you're not going to get this offer again, right? It turns out not all federal employees are eligible. Agency heads may determine carve-outs within their agencies. Military personnel, employees of the post office, save the post office, and those in positions related to immigration enforcement, that is the priority, and national security are exempt, right? So the idea here is to shrink government, big time. As far as I know, this has never been done before. Offers of severance have been given out to government employees, but never on a scale like this. And so, we're going to see what the response is. Now, in Congress, of course, the Democrats are saying that the president has no authority to make an offer like this. There's no budget line item to pay people who are not showing up for work. Again, this will be sued. They'll sue around this, and the courts will ultimately determine whether this is the right way or this is a legitimate way to shrink government. Now, I don't particularly like this. Why don't I like this? Well, it's simple. It's so not strategic, right? I get it that you could tell all the agencies to shrink the workforce by 10% and then tell the agency head that they're responsible to getting rid of their least productive employees. You can even say something like, as some companies do, I think Amazon does this regularly, the 10% lowest performing employees, fire them. Or 20%, or whatever the number you want to have. Or, I think ultimately it'll be great if whole agencies are shut down and closed and everybody's fired from there. But this is like a hodgepodge that's going to depend on people who are willing to resign and are willing to leave. And of course, who's gonna leave? Well, it's just based on incentives. If we just look at incentives, the most competent people with the most options in the private sector are likely to leave. People who don't think they'll ever find a job in the private sector are the ones that are going to stay. So you're basically providing a bad incentive structure. Now, why didn't this work at Twitter? The reason at Twitter talented people stayed is because there was an upside, right? If you stayed, you got stock, and if Twitter was a huge success, you would benefit enormously. Here, there's no upside to staying, right? No upside to staying. So the only incentive driving leaving or staying is whether you think you get a job outside, how talented you are, how good you are at your job. Assuming the better you are at your job, the more likely it is to get a job outside. So, it's the incentive structure is weird. There's no upside to staying. The only upside I can see to staying, and some people have commented on this, is government employees that want to stick around to screw with Trump, to fight him as government employees. How many people are like that? Just vindictive Democrats, leftists. I don't think there are that many of them that are willing to do that. Also, it's not clear how politically smart this is, right? What happens if, I don't know, half the people or 3/4 of the people in the passport department, the people who approve your passports, who renew passports, all resign. And suddenly that department shrinks by 75%. Well, people are going to be pissed off because their passports are not being approved. Or IRS, people who answer questions on the phone lines. And now you're not going to be able to get through the IRS. Now, as it is, it's really, really, really hard to get through the IRS. Imagine what'll happen now. And you could go on and on. In other words, it's not strategic. It's not, let's shrink the responsibilities of these departments, and as a consequence, we can fire a bunch of people. It's not, these departments are useless anyway, they don't do anything. Let's fire a bunch of people. Let's just fire, or let's let go of a bunch of people based on their own willingness to leave, independent of how good they are, independent of how valuable they are, independent of whether we need them or don't need them or anything like that. So you can't extrapolate from Twitter to the government. In Twitter, the incentives were different. But again, we will see. We will see how it all plays out. In the meantime, everybody's kind of frantic. Again, this will go to the courts. Does Trump have the legal authority to make this offer? And we will see what happens. Now, yesterday we talked about the freeze on a lot of government spending. A freeze on, all this government spending that was happening. And, pausing federal grants and loans. And nobody knew how broad it was. Did it apply to them? Didn't it apply to them? The freezing of all foreign aid, humanitarian aid, other kinds of aid, except for Israel and Egypt, but everything else. And then there was a question of, is this constitutional? Can Congress has approved all this money, and if so, can the president unilaterally just say, no, I'm not going to spend it, or I'm going to freeze it for 3 months or something like that? And immediately there were calls, but there's this AIDS program that saves lives, and there's this program where people are suffering, and some woman who gets welfare from the government and was, thought she was not going to get her welfare check anymore. She freaked out on Twitter, and that went viral. And all this stuff happened, and then so different departments start putting out exemptions, right? So Marco Rubio put out a waiver. If you humanitarian aid, if you're doing humanitarian aid, it's okay. And then other departments issued waivers. Oh no, this doesn't affect medical research for cancer research, NIH. Oh, this doesn't affect this. It doesn't affect that. And everybody had to make 1 million exemptions to this freezing rule, and it just created chaos and uncertainty and confusion. And then a federal judge stepped in and basically said, wait a minute, freeze the freeze. I'm putting the freeze on hold. I'm freezing the freeze, until I evaluate this and rule about its actual constitutionality. Again, the power of the purse sits with the Congress, not with the president. So I'm going to freeze the freeze. And then, according to Ian and some others on the chat, NBC is now reporting that the administration has rescinded the order. Yes, makes complete sense. It created so much chaos, so much confusion. It was so unspecified. It was so vague and weird that they had to make all these exemptions. And then a court says, you can't do this. You might not be able to do this anyway. And I'm freezing it for now, and then we'll evaluate. And it'll be in front of the courts. Now, the court hasn't ruled one way or the other, but they were rescinding it. Now we'll see what they do next. But this is an administration of chaos. And I think that Elon Musk thrives in this kind of environment. He is a entrepreneur, startup guy. You try this, doesn't work, you go something else. You know, people have a huge uncertainty. It doesn't matter. They're getting paid a lot of money. You go do something. You change your mind. You move around. You move really, really fast. That's what you do in a startup and in business. And clearly that is being brought, at least to some extent, to how the government is being run right now. Doesn't quite work the same. Government employees, people in departments, are not quite as ready to jump in and do that. Yep. All right. Let's see. All right, so yeah, funding freeze. We'll keep following up on this. We'll see if what happens. We'll see what actually the government actually ultimately does. We'll see how Trump recovers from this. We'll also watch the deferred resignations. We'll be watching RFK. I mean, this is a funny one. Again, I'm looking at a feed of RFK's latest questions and answers, and he was asked about what he considers the gold standard in science. He keeps saying, I'm interested in the gold standard in science. That's what I care about. And he says something about real scientific research with replication of studies, which very rarely happens at NIH. I doubt that is actually true. I mean, there are problems with replication, but the idea that nobody's interested in replication is just not true. He said we should be giving at least 20% of NIH budget to replication. We should make sure that all science is published with raw data. We should make sure that peer reviews are also published. The reality is, for example, that the safety or the non-causal relationship between vaccines and autism has been replicated and peer-reviewed and all of that, and it didn't change the fact that he still was anti-vax. Anyway, again, Republicans are giving him softballs and Democrats are laying into him, and I haven't seen yet a Republican engaged in asking him tough questions. So if all Republicans vote for him, he will be the next Health and Human Services, which is, I don't know. I mean, it's just, I think, unbelievably scary. All right, this one's kind of funny, just to show you that the U.S. government is not the funniest and not the only dysfunctional government out there. So we've talked about this before, and there have been a bunch of stories about it and a bunch of interest in this. The German economy is heading into probably its third year in a recession. The European economy continues to stagnate across Europe. Europe has, I know Americans don't believe this, but the reality is that the American economy has dramatically outpaced the European economy over the last 20 years. I mean, it's not even close how much wealthier we have become in the United States as compared to the Europeans. There's almost no innovation in Europe. There are no unicorns, successful companies, and the fundamental reasons are basically well known, and there've been reports about this. There was Mario Draghi, the former head of the European Bank, put out a report a few months ago. We talked about this on the show, where he basically blamed the massive amount of regulation, which makes it impossible to innovate, and for startups and a bad startup environment and a bad VC environment. And he primarily blamed regulation. We also know the cost of energy, particularly in Germany, less so in France. So what's France's excuse? France has relatively cheap energy because they have nuclear. Germany has very, very, very expensive energy because they rely so much on solar and wind. And it varies from country to country across Europe. But generally, energy costs are high because of environmental regulations and because of really bad decision-making on the part of leaders. But you go, so Europe is really hurting, really stagnating. It really difficult times economically in Europe. The European Commission has now introduced a competitiveness compass, what they call a comprehensive strategy to boost Europe's economic competitiveness over the next 5-year plan. So, yay, Europe has just come up with a 5-year plan to be more competitive, to increase productivity. And the reason, by the way, for the lack of economic growth, the reason for the fact that wages and wealth are stagnated in Europe is because productivity is stagnated. So the initiative is supposed to increase productivity in Europe. So the central planners in Europe have now figured out a way to improve the European economy. And it has 3 main pillars. First, they are going to enhance productivity through innovation. Yay! The government has now decided it's time to innovate. Please innovate. You guys out there, innovate. It's the only way we're going to increase productivity is to please innovate. We'll talk about how they plan to do this, right? Enhance productivity through innovation. That's good, if they know what that means. Integrating decarbonization with industrial policies. Ooh, what does that mean? Well, decarbonization is one of the reasons they have such high energy costs. One of the reasons industry is failing because it can't compete because of high costs. So what is that about? It sounds like more of the same to me. And maybe the problem is, I'm just speculating here, maybe the problem is industrial policy. Maybe the problem is central planning. Maybe the problem is that Europe has an industrial policy. Germany has an industrial policy. That's the problem. And then finally, ensuring security and strategic autonomy, which is great to ensure security and strategic autonomy. Not clear how that increases competitiveness. Indeed, to the extent that it sucks a bunch of money out of the rest of the economy, that probably reduces competitiveness. But it's a good thing to do. It's important. It's part of the job of government. Protection of individual rights includes security, and security requires some level of independence, of autonomy. Autonomy, I think here meaning autonomy from the U.S. So how are they going to achieve these things, particularly innovation? Key actions include simplifying regulations. I like that. Simplify the regulations. You still have the same regulation, but just make it simpler, easier to persecute people, easier for people to understand how you want to limit their freedom. Not reduce regulation, not eliminate regulation, not completely restructure regulation, simplify regulation. Why? To reduce bureaucratic burdens. Is that the problem, bureaucratic burdens? Or is the problem that the private sector is being hampered, its hands tied, coercion and force being placed on it, and that is why it's not innovating? So they have no clue. What Europe needs is a massive, thorough, systematic review of all regulations and the elimination of most of them. I mean, ultimately all of them, but most of them at this level. Not simplifying them and reducing bureaucratic burden. The problem is not bureaucratic burden. The problem is too many regulations. regulations that are too restrictive, regulations that suppress innovation and suppress economic activity. What else? Supporting startups. How are they going to do that? Our governments now going to get into the venture capital business and start literally supporting startups? Not a good idea. More central planning, more industrial policy, more of the same. More of the same. But they have a compass. It's a really pretty compass that measures decarbonization, competitiveness, reducing excess regulation, reducing excessive dependencies and increasing securities. That's the U.S. All of that on a compass. I don't know what the compass means, but it looks cool. Improving access to finance. I wonder if that has anything to do with deregulating finance. Enhancing skills and job quality. All right? How do you do that? That would be great. And fostering a robust single market. Don't you already have a single market? Now, through deregulations, you could create a much better single market, but that would require some revolutionary deregulations. The plan, it says, also aims to align European national and local efforts for sustainable growth. With specific goals like saving companies over $37 billion annually through regulatory simplification. There we go, regulatory simplification again. But sustainable growth. You know what's sustainable growth? Capitalism. If you implement capitalism, the result is sustainable growth. Growth will not be only high, it will sustain itself over the long run. That is in the nature of capitalism. Regulatory simplification does not get you sustainable growth. Doesn't even get you growth. This is kind of a comment. While the initiative has garnered support from the news story for its focus on innovation and environmental sustainability, there are concerns about addressing high energy costs and investment in clean energy technologies. I mean, they have no clue. They just don't know what to do. They are so captured by a central planning mentality, a mentality of top-down running of an economy, a socialist mentality at the end of the day, that they cannot get away from that. And as a consequence, they can't even imagine what they would need to do, what Europe would need to do in order to actually reform itself and actually get it to a place where they can really compete with economies that are far more nimble. And as bad as the US economy is, it is far more nimble, far more bottom up, far more entrepreneurial based, far less industrial policy oriented than the European model. They have no clue that what they need is more freedom. Economic freedom is unthinkable to the central planners in Europe. So, you know, everybody's excited because they have a compass. They have a compass. It's going to fail. And so, you know, there's people are writing, it's time to restart Europe's innovation engine. We have the compass. We have the political will. Now what matters is speed and unity because the world is not waiting for us. I mean, people are delusional. What they need is a massive restructuring of the whole regulatory regime. At the EU level, they should drive regulations to zero. That will drive competitiveness. That will increase productivity. All right. Oh, good news. We have some legitimately good news. It's rare. Once in a while, we get it. According to Our World in Data, which is a website that just looks at data and analyzes it and gives you graphs and stuff like that, the world has probably passed what they are calling peak air pollution. Like, we all value clean air, right? Well, the air is cleaner now than it was a few years ago, and it's getting cleaner on a global scale. So I'm just going to read from this post by Our World in Data. Global emissions of local air pollutants have probably passed their peak, and they show charts that show sulfur dioxide, SO2, peaked probably in the 1970s and has been going down steadily since then. Carbon monoxide, CO, peaked, it's hard to tell from this graph the exact years, but maybe in the 1980s, been going down since then. Organic carbon, OC, probably peaked recently, but it's starting to go down, Nitrogen oxide, again, peaked relatively recently, but is definitely on a downward trend. Black carbon peaked, in the 20-teens on what looks like a downward trend. The only one that's up is ammonia. Ammonia's up. So the article says it looks like emissions have peaked for almost all of these pollutants. Global air pollution is now falling, and we can save many lives by accelerating this decline. The exception is ammonia, which is mainly produced by agriculture. Its emissions are still rising. These estimates come from the Community Emissions Data System. So yeah, life on planet Earth is getting cleaner, and at the same time, people are getting richer, and standard of living and quality of life is going up. Pretty funny. One of the things that, anyway, so good news. I mean, good stuff is happening out there. I think water's getting cleaner, air's getting cleaner, clean is good. We're getting cleaner and richer. And in spite of all the craziness, good things are happening around the world. Technology is improving. And because technology is improving, we can cut down on these kind of emissions. So one of the funny things, I mean, it's not funny, it's kind of sad and pathetic, but that are happening in the Trump administration is they're cleansing the past of people Trump doesn't like, people that Trump feels betrayed him. So, like, General Milley's portrait in the Pentagon is gone. Milley's not a good guy. Trump doesn't like him. Trump accuses him of treason. So not only is the security clearance gone, not only is any kind of protection, he's one of these guys that there are threats to his life, gone, but his portrait in the Pentagon, which has the portraits of all the chiefs of staff, is gone. I mean, it's almost Stalinist, right? And then Mike Espers, who was Secretary of the Army in the past, in the Pentagon's Army Secretary hallway, Mark Espers, he was Defense Secretary and Secretary of the Army. His portrait is gone. They've taken it down because I don't remember what Espers did to Trump. I mean, he was Defense Secretary. He must have said no to Trump about something. So Espers is now purged. He's gone. He's disappeared. Right? Yeah, we know. I think I already talked about the fact that they've taken this Secret Service detail away from Bolton, away from a number of others, from Pompeo, even though Pompeo has remained loyal to Trump throughout. Doesn't matter. Something he said Trump didn't like, so he's out. I mean, it really is like a Soviet style. Well, not quite. They're not going to gulags. But it is funny that it is a kind of rewriting of history. It's really about as despicable and ridiculous as possible, right? Huh. All right, let's see. Yeah, I wanted one more Well, we've got a few more stories. Let's just do some of these other stories. I just want to say one more thing about Boom. Remember the story from yesterday? Boom reached supersonic speed yesterday. Their test plane reached that speed. A huge milestone, the first time a private company, a designed, operated, built plane has reached supersonic speed, a civilian. This is a crucial step towards now building a commercial plane and then testing it, flying it, and then going into commercial production. They've already got orders from a number of them, so fantastic for Boom. One of the things I saw today, I think Blake Scholes, the CEO of Boom, posted this. There was no sonic boom heard on the ground. So one of the things that Boom has done, and one of the things that technology and new materials and new design innovation have made possible as compared to the Concorde, is that they have reduced the sonic boom dramatically so that, under certain conditions and at certain altitudes, you can't hear the jet from the ground. That'll make a huge difference. If you want to fly, for example, the LA-New York route, which could be incredibly lucrative, if you could use, so instead of, I don't know, what does it take now, 5 hours, 5.5, 6 hours, you could do it in 3 or even in 4. That would be huge in terms of cutting down travel time. If you could do that, the Concorde could never do it because it was too noisy. There was real, these sonic booms across the entire country. Here, if you can have no sonic boom or a minimal sonic boom, again, the potential is huge. I also saw there was a lot of posting about Boom today, and Blake posted a lot, and it was good to see. You remember I told you the story of I was very skeptical, and I when I heard about this, and one of these amazing dreams, and it turns out everybody was skeptical. That is, everybody Blake talked to basically said, "Are you crazy?" Including his wife at the time, who basically said, "Okay, you can try this out for a year, but that's it. Unless it takes off in a year, I guess they're not married anymore." But others in his friends and associates were all pretty skeptical about this, and he talked about that, and he said even he wanted to take a shot at it. He wanted to try it. He was, I don't know what probability he would have given himself at the beginning that he would be successful, but it's it's pretty. It's pretty amazing that he actually did it. Wonder Freeman says, sonic booms are not a problem. Just take off subsonic and transition to sonic over the ocean. But that's the point, right? The point I was making is that they are a problem if you want to fly from Los Angeles to New York City, because there's no ocean. It's all land. So can you fly from New York City to LA at supersonic speeds? You can if there's no sonic boom, or if the sonic boom is minimal. And that expands the usability of a supersonic jet dramatically. And it makes it much, much more profitable. It then means a lot of other companies will take it on. So Jennifer says it's called Boom, but there's no boom. Yeah, they're thinking of changing the name to No Boom. No boom. So, it just shows how, the vision, determination, passion, how important those characteristics are, and how the kind of obstacles you can overcome. Again, the idea that you could do a supersonic jet after Concorde, that you could do it privately without Boeing and Airbus, without government money. Remember, Boeing and Airbus get huge subsidies, right, from the government, is pretty pretty amazing. And as I said, nobody thought was possible given the regulatory regime that we had. And yet, doesn't matter, Republicans, Democrats, he got it done. He got it done. The hell with politics. I'm just going to drive to get it done, and I'm going to overcome the obstacles. It's amazing. So again, congratulations. All right, one quick one. We've talked a lot about DeepSeek, so there are more stories coming out. So now it turns out OpenAI, Sam Altman's company, is accusing DeepSeek of using its proprietary models to train their own AI system. So supposedly this is illegal or wrong, so there's now an investigation by both OpenAI and Microsoft into potential unauthorized data acquisition. So there's a lot of trying to figure this out, and what did they do, and how did it happen, and are they cheating in any way? In other words, are they cheating in any way? The other aspect of this that is interesting is some people are claiming, well, maybe they did use NVIDIA's most advanced chips. Maybe they got them smuggled into China, and they won't admit it because they're not supposed to have those chips. But maybe this is a sign, another indication, that even though the U.S. banned the NVIDIA chips from being exported to China, they're making their way there anyway. And in this context, I read somewhere that a big chunk of NVIDIA's sales of its most advanced chips is going to Singapore. Singapore. Now, there are some computer assembly, electronic assembly plants, companies in Singapore, but it doesn't seem to match the quantity that's being sold to Singapore. And the suspicion is, it wouldn't be a crazy suspicion, I don't think, that what happens is that in Singapore, they're repackaged and sold on to the Chinese, and NVIDIA chips are making it into Singapore in spite of everything, and maybe DeepSeek did indeed use NVIDIA chips in developing its software. So again, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of speculation about what actually is going on here, what actually happened, how bad is it, what does it imply for NVIDIA, what does it imply for OpenAI, and so there's and this will continue until people figure it out, and it might take years to truly figure it out. And Sam Altman had a great response, though. At the end of the day, he said, this is great. More competition is good. It keeps us on our toes. We will produce better products, cheaper products. We intend to beat these guys at whatever game they're playing. So, yeah, bring on the competition. That is the right attitude. Good for Sam Altman. Okay. I think that is the news. An hour later, that is the news for this January 29th, Wednesday. All right, we are way behind on the first hour goal. Never mind the second hour goal, which we're entering into right now. So the first hour has 1 minute to go. We're about $100 short of the goal for the first hour. So please consider supporting the show. If you value the news as produced by the Yaron Brook Show, if you get something out of it, you're here, suggest that you value it to some extent, please consider expressing your support by making a contribution here live. You can do so by doing a super chat or by doing a sticker and supporting the show in that way. This show cannot exist without support from people like you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mark, who just both did stickers right now. Again, can't exist without support from people like you, from listeners like you. Listeners are what make this show. Funding from listeners. And of course, you can also do this on a monthly basis by going to Patreon, patreon.com, putting in Yaron Brook Show, and becoming a monthly supporter. All kinds of perks associated with different levels, including at the $10 level and up. You get a ads-free podcast link. So you can listen to it on any podcast app, but you go, if you go through the Patreon, you get it without ads. And I will say that the posting of those podcasts lags a little bit from the live one. We haven't figured out how to automate it. So my assistant has to have the time after the show to upload it. Sometimes she only does it in the evening or the following morning. So there is a certain lag associated with it. So I'm warning you in advance. But overall, you can get it ad free. All the shows go up ultimately. All right. Yeah. Somebody's just posted just a few of RFK's crazy, batshit crazy stuff that he said over the years. Lyme disease is a bioweapon. COVID spares Ashkenazi Jews. Now, I can tell you, as an Ashkenazi Jew, genetically, it didn't spare me. I got COVID. Pesticide, and Israel's filled with Ashkenazi Jews. Israel had a lot of COVID. Pesticides make people transgender. God, I didn't even know he said that. Yeah, who knows? He said these all on record. You can find video, you can find the statements. I mean, the guy's nuts. He just comes up with crazy stuff. COVID spared thin people. I know a lot of thin people who got COVID. I mean, if you're in good shape, if you're healthy, in good shape and healthy, then, you know, COVID wasn't a big deal, but you still got COVID. A lot of people got COVID that I know. And I know some people who were in great shape who landed up in hospital because of COVID. So, hard to generalize. So, my hope for the day, we'll end this and go to Super Chat. My hope for today is that if Congress does one good thing, it's not going to do many, but if it does one good thing, it's to reject RFK to lead the HHS. There's so many people who would be better. Reject RFK, that would be one amazing good thing that Congress for change could do. I don't expect them to do it, but we can hope. We can hope. All right. This is it. Let's see. This is a funny headline. You can judge it for what it is, although it does, you know. OpenAI, furious that DeepSeek might have stolen all the data OpenAI stole from us. I mean, there's certain truth to that in the sense that OpenAI used so-called publicly available information online, but it never sought anybody's permission to use it or didn't provide compensation to anybody. Indeed, there was a bunch of lawsuits against OpenAI because they used certain newspaper stuff without compensation. They used to train their models. So it's a good headline, I think. All right, let's see. Let's go to Super Chat and go from there. Let's keep this open over here so we can see the exciting breaking news as it happens. All right, let me just thank Alan. Thank you for the sticker. That's his 5th Super Chat. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mark. Let's see. We've got more. Thank you, Mark, again. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Silvanos. And I think we're caught up on the... Thank you, Jonathan. We caught up on the stickers. All right. So let's go to questions. We're still like $80 short of the first hour goal. We really need to get to more than the first hour goal to make our January goal. So please consider it. James says, first Richard Hanania is quoting Rand left and right. Now Bret Cooper is leaving the Daily Wire and quoting Ayn Rand left and right. Is objectivism exponential growth process coming sooner than you think? I don't know. It's very hard to tell because there were a lot of fake growth graphs. So during the Tea Party, it certainly looked like there was going to be exponential growth. I mean, Ayn Rand sold almost 1 million copies in 1 year of all of her books. it was just it was the best year ever for Ayn Rand's books during the Tea Party. And then it all went away. So it's hard to tell how much is sustainable. What is really, really encouraging about Richard Hanania, maybe Bret Cooper, we'll see what the quality of Bret Cooper's stuff is. And there's also a podcast that came out of two literature people talking about Atlas Shrugged and how good of a book it is, just from a literature perspective, which I thought was huge, academics, that these are all intellectuals. They're not just politicians sucking up to somebody. They're not just, random commentators, but these are intellectuals who have an impact on the culture. Now, I don't know, again, about Bret Cooper. I don't know how intellectual she is. But yeah, it's great news, but I don't want to get you excited about exponential growth. I think it's too soon. I think you have to see many, many years of this increasing significantly to really have an evaluation in terms of the actual sustainability and whether this is ongoing or whether this is just a blip. Jennifer says Cooper supports Trump, Vance, Tucker, RFK. Anybody who supports Tucker and uses an Ayn Rand quote is bad for objectivism. If you support Tucker and you support RFK and you support Vance and you support all of those people and you're using Ayn Rand, then it's bad. Then she's also anti-abortion. So it doesn't help us that bad people quote Ayn Rand. It hurts us. It hurts us. Because then people think Ayn Rand is of the new right. Richard Hanania is different because Richard Hanania, at least as of now, is secular, pro-immigration, pro-capitalism. He's wrong on a bunch of different things. Pro-abortion, wrong on a bunch of different things, but really, really good on a lot of things. A lot of things he's consistent with Ayn Rand. Anti-racism now, even though he has a history of racism, he's anti-racism now. He's changed. So that, I think, matters. It's important. All right, that's James. So I wish we had exponential growth. Oh, Rajesh, thank you for the sticker. Really appreciate that. Keep them coming, guys. Got to keep them coming. Clark says, it seems like Rand's name comes up in waves. Oh, okay, it's the same question again. Like in 2009, after the Great Recession, and now a bit because of Alex Epstein's influence, it just doesn't seem to last. People are like goldfish with 15-second attention spans. I think that's true, but it does last, right? I mean, don't minimize this. Of the million people who read Ayn Rand in 2010 or 2013 or whenever the peak was, a bunch of them, it stuck with them. It wasn't a million, but a bunch of them, it stuck with them. A bunch of people who are introduced to Ayn Rand now, it's going to stick with them. So it won't be the full number, but generally the movement is growing. I don't think it's growing exponentially, but it's growing steadily, consistently. The number of intellectuals out there who know of Ayn Rand is growing. The number of objectivist intellectuals who are going to enter into the advocacy field, the field of talking about ideas is growing. And, given all that, it's growing steadily, slowly, but it's growing. It's not going fast, which is sad. But to grow exponentially, we're going to have a lot more intellectuals. When we have, 100 Alexes, 100 Yarons, that's when exponential growth will happen. Spitula something looks like, I'm not sure what that name is. Any economist suggest a cap on printing dollars to the exact amount GDP grew by and using only that money to pay for government spending. Superficially, seems like a good way to pay for government spending without taxes and also, no inflation. Yeah, I think superficially that's right. So, I think this is similar to nominal GDP growth. You want to grow the money supply with nominal GDP, which is for steady nominal GDP, which is Scott Sumner's theory or something similar to Scott Sumner's. Anyway, but of course, what it is taking away is, can we really measure, is GDP really a good measure of increased productivity and increased economic growth? I've said often that GDP is not a very good measure. For example, you would increase the money supply quite a bit during wars. And when government spending went up, government spending would go up more because GDP goes up. So it's not a great measure. It would also, because the money would all flow into the government, it would have distorting effects regarding relative prices, where this money entered the economy first. So while it wouldn't have maybe overall inflationary changes, that is, prices wouldn't all go up, the price level wouldn't go up, relative allocation of funds would be impacted by it because of you're still increasing the amount of money. That amount of money isn't chasing all goods all at the same time. It's chasing those goods that the government is buying. So it affects prices in a particular region, in a particular space, which distorts relative prices. So there's just no way for the government to, there's no free lunches. There's no way to print money, spend money without having negative impacts. Now, it could be, if you're going to have a Fed, then having the Fed only increase the money supply based on a rule, there's something called the Taylor rule. Milton Friedman had a constant growth rule. This is a GDP rule, is much, much, much better than having a Federal Reserve that can arbitrarily spend money at its own discretion without any rule that guides it. So in a sense that this would constitute a rule, yeah, it's better than what we have. It's definitely an improvement. Thank you. Silvanos, wow, $100. Really, really appreciate that. You got us past our 1 hour goal and into our 2nd hour goal. Really appreciate the support. Silvanos says, hey, Yaron, I know you enjoy poker, but do you play anything else? Is it moral to play games that feature deception or deceitful aspects to win? Sure, as long as it's a game, right? In baseball, the pitcher wants to hide from you what kind of pitch is coming next. And he does all kinds of things to try to deceive you. When you're shooting a penalty kick in soccer, football, you want to deceive the goalie in terms of which direction you're going to kick the ball. Quarterbacks want to deceive the defenses and how they're going to. Of course, so there's no problem in games as long as it's a game, as long as it's understood that the deception is for the purpose of the game and nothing else. Bluffing in poker, bluffing in all kinds of other games. I mean, the other game I like and have played, but I haven't played it in years and years, but I really enjoyed it when I played it, is Bridge, which is a fantastic game. It's a strategy game. It's a mind game. It has some elements of deception in the sense of you try to come up with ways to bid with your partner so that your opponents don't quite understand what it is that you're bidding. But yeah, absolutely. Oh, we got a question from Croatia. So the previous one where I couldn't pronounce his name is from Croatia. I'd love to come and visit Croatia. I really, really liked Dubrovnik that I visited years and years and years ago. But I would love organize a talk for me. Get one of the universities in Croatia to invite me to come and give a talk, and I will come. I have often said, invite me and I will come. If you build it, they will come. If you invite me, I will come. Pretty straightforward. Pretty cool. So yeah, I would love to come to Croatia. Croatia is a beautiful, beautiful country. Let's see. Not your average algorithm. Part 1. What do you mean people's images shouldn't be used in AI without their consent? Much of satire uses Photoshop. Yeah, and I don't think you should be able to just randomly satirize somebody using Photoshop. I think you have to get somebody's permission if you're going to use their image. So now, maybe there should be an exclusion for, what do you call it, public people. So it's very tough, for somebody who's in the public eye to win a defamation case. So because of satire and things like that. So if you're a politician or something like that. So there have to be clear rules on when you can and cannot. But you can't just take my picture and use it for something. It's like, my picture's mine. My image is mine. You can't use it. By the way, often when Ayn Rand Institute does videotapes a talk that somebody gives, and it's going to videotape the audience, the audience signs a waiver to allow the institute to use the image only for this talk, not to use the image for other things. So this is not unusual. This is understood today. Now, there might be exceptions for satire or whatever, but it's understood that people cannot use your image for whatever they want. They have to compensate you for it, or they have to get your permission. Not your average algorithm says, I take video and edit it however I want of anyone in public without their consent. That's just wrong. It's a form of freedom of the press, which is a First Amendment protected activity. No, it's not. It's not freedom of the press. You can't go out into the public and photograph me walking across the street and just use it. That is, that's a violation of my privacy. It's a violation of my, of me owning my own likeness. And again, in a lot of circumstances, you see people have to sign waivers so that the images can be used. And you do see a lot of videos on the news, in other places, where somebody's being interviewed and the people in the background and their faces are shaded out because they didn't get their permission to have them on TV. And it's really, really important. You don't have a right. You don't have a right to say whatever the hell you want to say, wherever you want to say it, in whatever context you want to say it. For example, you don't have a right to defame me. You don't have the right to use my property. And my image is my property. So no, I don't think that you're right. There are laws about this. I don't know how clear they are. Given that you're in video and you take videos, you should get clarity around the laws, because even today, I'm not sure what you're doing is legit. And it's not protected by the First Amendment. The First Amendment does not protect your right to publicize my image. Justin says, Milei spoke at Davos. Give it a listen and commentary. I intend to. I haven't had a chance yet to catch this talk. Jason, as mentioned yesterday, Bret Cooper's official trailer has now 1.5 million views. I watched it. It features Ayn Rand speaking her narration, a total break with your past world. All of that is good, except that she does not break with her past world. She's probably religious. She's probably conservative. She's probably an altruist. She's probably just a conventional conservative. And Ayn Rand would be horrified by her voice being used to promote a conservative, a standard conservative. Larry Green says Trump just rescinded the order to freeze federal aid spending. Yeah, we talked about that. But this, of course, was asked a long time ago. I'm not surprised at all. I mean, given the chaos and the incompetence in this administration. Jason, in cousin Caroline Kennedy's YouTube appeal not to nominate RFK, did you hear her mention that America's healthcare is the envy of the world? I did not. I did not hear her mention that. If she mentioned that, that's pretty cool, but I wish the world knew that it should envy us. I don't think, unfortunately, the world actually knows it should envy us. By the way, thank you to Kim, thank you to Nevfal, and to Gian for their stickers. You too can support the Yaron Brook Show by using a sticker, no question needed. And they did it for like, $2, so you can do a $2 one as well. And that's great. Really appreciate it. Apollo Zeus, Scarface versus Miami Vice. Who is more immoral? Tony Montana for providing illicit substances that destroy lives, or Crocket and Tubbs who are helping to take away your right to choose what you can put in your body, thus violating your individual rights? I mean, look, you can't defend Scarface because he lives in a world of violence that is based on a world of violence. It's not like, oh, he really wants to provide you with something helpful to your life or even whatever that you have demand for. So that's immoral. But then, you know, the police, if you join the police, your job is to follow the law. It's not your job to decide which laws are right and which laws are wrong. So I don't blame police for arresting drug dealers. I blame the law. The police are just doing their job. So I wouldn't view, so I don't think it's fair to compare them. At the end of the day, Crocket and Tubbs is not killing anybody. They are indeed enforcing the law, and they're putting in jail people who break the law, who know that if they get caught, this is what will happen to them. All right, last question for today's show, and then I guess I'll head to the airport. Hey, Yaron, if Superman was an objectivist instead of altruist, what do you think his stories could be about? Would objectivist superheroes be cool? Yeah. First of all, they'd kill the bad guys. They wouldn't keep letting them free without killing them. They wouldn't have moral qualms about killing murderers, killing bad guys. They'd announce to the world that, that they are doing this as a trade, and that, they're doing this to live in a better world because they want to live in a better world. But hey, if the world wants to give them a super chat or send them a sticker or do a Patreon, they are open to be compensated for the superhero deeds that they commit, that they engage in. That the world shouldn't think that they can just free ride off of Superman, but they should be induced to pony up something. They would also, I think, Superman would also coordinate much more with the police and the military of the good guys to make sure that he's going after really evil and he has their cooperation when he does so. So, yeah, you could find superheroes that are cool because they're self-interested, and it would be cool to see somebody saving the world in the name of his own interests. I think that would be super cool. All right, guys, we will call it a day. Again, I'm not sure when the next show will be. I might try to do a show tomorrow from Clemson. I'm not sure if that's possible, if we can pull that off, but, we'll see. When I get to Clemson, maybe I can interview Brad Thompson or something like that. But that could be fun. Anyway, I will see you all whenever the next show is, which I cannot commit right now for when that will be. Certainly Sunday we'll do a show, maybe Saturday, but certainly Sunday, and we'll try to do some other shows other times. But I am going off to travel. Some of you I'm going to see in Naples at the conference, at the Rand's Day conference that we're going to celebrate together, 120th birthday of Ayn Rand. So please do that. Don't forget to note the sponsors, the Ayn Rand Institute, which is also doing something special. February 2nd, you can find information about that and sign up for the webinar at aynrand.org/start here. And Alex Epstein, who of course provides incredible value to all of you and to your ability to communicate about these ideas. And you can discover more and you can sign up to get the value from Alex by going to alexepstein.substack.com. All right, guys. See you soon. Bye, everybody.